shouldn't be telling you this. I know how that sounds like the start of a bad horror story you've heard 1,000 times before. But listen carefully, because this isn't fiction. This isn't some creative exercise or late-night ramble I cooked up for internet points. This is real. If I don't get it out, if I don't put these words somewhere outside of my head, it's going to eat me alive before the night is over.
Oh.
But here's the thing. If you're still here, still listening when I reach the end, then maybe it won't just be me. Maybe it'll have you too. I don't mean that as a threat. I swear if I could erase this from my memory and walk away, I would. But there are things you can't unsee, truths you can't unknow. And once you've brushed up against them, they cling like oil-thick black, impossible to wash off. That's what I'm covered in right now. Do you know what the worst part is? This all started so stupidly. Nothing special, nothing cinematic, just an ordinary night like every other. One of those evenings where you convince yourself nothing bad could possibly happen. I wasn't exploring an abandoned asylum. I wasn't digging into forbidden websites or messing with witchcraft. It was so simple, so mundane, that I keep circling back, asking myself how it spiraled this far. But it did. The moment I opened the door, the moment I leaned in, it was already too late. I can feel your skepticism, and I don't blame you. If I were you, I'd probably be smirking right now, thinking, this is just another creepypasta setup. He's trying to scare me with half-truths and fake sincerity. But here's the difference. Most stories end when you click away, when you close the window or put down your phone. Mine doesn't. Mine follows. So, here's my confession. There are parts of this story I wish I could forget. Terrifying, ugly parts that won't let me sleep, that crawl across the walls of my mind in the dark. But if I don't tell them, I won't survive the night. That's not dramatics. It's not exaggeration. Something out there, no. Something in here wants me to stay quiet, to smother it, to bury it in silence. And silence, I've learned, is exactly what it feeds on. So you're my only chance. If you're still listening by the end of this, you'll understand why I hesitated. You'll understand why I almost chose to die with it locked in my skull. Guess the story doesn't end with me. It can't. I know this because I've seen the proof. I've seen neighbors, co-workers, people I've known for years, standing frozen in doorways with eyes that weren't their own. I've watched shadows stretch where no light should reach. I've caught glimpses of things' faces, smiles that vanished the instant I blinked, as if they'd been waiting for me to look. And each time I tell myself maybe it's all in my head, maybe I've cracked. But then the voices whispered the same line over and over. If you don't tell them, you'll be next. I don't even know who them is supposed to be. Maybe it's you. Maybe that's why you're here, why your eyes landed on this. But I need you to understand one thing right now. This isn't just a story. It's not a memory. It's not even a warning. It's a contagion. With every word you hear, every sentence that slips past your defenses, it gets closer. I shouldn't be telling you this. God, I know I shouldn't. But if I don't, it'll consume me completely. Which leaves me with a single, terrible choice. Do I drag you down with me? Or do I stay silent and let it win? Well, I've already started, haven't I? So, I guess all that's left is to go back to the beginning. To that one ordinary night when everything still seemed laughably safe. That was when it began. It was supposed to be just another night. I'd had a long day work, errands, the usual grind. It's nothing worth remembering, nothing worth retelling. The kind of day you file away with all the others, where you collapse on the couch and scroll your phone until your eyes blur. That's what I thought I was in for, when instead I ended up meeting a couple of friends. Nothing dramatic, just a last-minute text. "We're hanging out, come by." You know how those things go. Almost didn't bother. Part of me just wanted to stay home, order takeout, binge some show I'd forget about the next morning. And here's the cruel part. If I'd stayed home, none of this would have happened. Maybe I'd still be safe right now. But I didn't. I told myself I needed the distraction. So I grabbed my jacket, locked the door behind me, and walked into a night that felt quiet, too quiet. Of course, I didn't notice that part right away. At first, everything was normal. The streets were empty, sure, but that wasn't strange. It was late past the hour when anyone sane would be out. The air was cool, crisp, carrying that faint smell of damp earth after rain. A little refreshing, actually. I even remember thinking, this might be good for me. I need this. At the time I got to my friend's place, the mood had shifted into something lighthearted. Laughter, stupid banter, the kind of meaningless chatter that feels like a relief after a long day. "Dude, you look like hell," Mark said as I walked in. He had this smug grin, the kind only someone who hasn't worked a real job in months can pull off. "Thanks," I muttered. "You smell like it." The room erupted in laughter, even though it wasn't that funny. But that's what friendship is, right? It's inside jokes. Forced chuckles. Pretending we're all funnier than we really are. For a while, it felt safe. Normal. We ordered pizza. Someone put on a playlist that jumped awkwardly from old punk to lo-fi beats. We sat around tossing dumb comments about people we used to know. The kind of conversation where nothing matters and you secretly hope it never ends. Nothing felt wrong, till it did. It was gradual, so subtle I almost ignored it. At first I thought the lights were just dimmer than usual, like maybe one of the bulbs was dying. Corners of the room seemed a little darker, shadows thicker, stretched longer than they should have been. Then I noticed the air, still heavy, too heavy for an ordinary night in a cramped living room. Normally someone's house feels lived in, rustling, humming, settled. But that night, it was like the entire space had been vacuum sealed. Like if we stopped talking, there would be nothing. And that silence, God, that silence. "Anyone else feel weird?" I asked at one point, trying to laugh it off. "Yeah," Sarah said, but she was grinning. "Weird that you still can't hold your liquor." The others laughed, and the tension snapped for a moment. But even as I smiled, something twisted in my gut, because beneath the laughter I swore I heard something else. A low hum. It was like an electric current crawling through the walls. I told myself I was imagining it. That's what we do, right? We rationalize. Well, I went along with it. We joked, we drank, we argued about movies. Everything you'd expect on a night like that. But every so often, my eyes would drift to the window. The street outside was too dark, like the lampposts had given up. Not broken, just off. The kind of off that makes your skin prickle. If I had left then, if I'd trusted my instincts and said, "You know what, guys, I'm heading home," maybe none of what came after would have touched me. Maybe I'd still be able to sleep without keeping the lights on, but I stayed. And that choice, the choice to laugh a little longer, to have one more drink, to stretch out the night just a bit, was the first mistake. The kind you don't get to undo. You ever hear a silence so heavy it feels alive? Like it's pressing on your skin, sliding under your ribs, waiting for you to notice it? That's what crept into the room after the laughter died down. It started small, a lull in the conversation, pause that stretched just a little too long. No music, no chatter, just the crack of a soda can opening, and then it's nothing. Power cut, Mark muttered, frowning at the Bluetooth speaker. He tapped it like that would help. Piece of junk. The thing was, the power wasn't out. The lights flickered once faint, like they were breathing in, then steadied again. But in that flicker, I swear the shadows moved. Not shifted, moved. Like they had their own rhythm. I tried to make a joke, because that's what I do when things get uncomfortable. Guess even the ghosts hate your playlist, man. It got a chuckle, weak and thin, but then faded right back into that awful silence. That was the first time I knew I wasn't alone. At first, I thought it was paranoia, a trick of my tired brain. But then I heard it soft, almost too soft to notice. A whisper, not words, just the shape of words. "Did you hear that?" I asked. My throat suddenly dry. Hear what? Sarah shot back. She sounded annoyed, like I'd ruined the mood. But Mark tilted his head. Wait, yeah, it's like he trailed off, brow furrowed, like someone's talking. We all froze. The air was thick, pressing in. My ears strained, and that's when I caught it again. A hiss, right behind me. You're not supposed to be here. I spun around. Nothing. Just the dim kitchen doorway yawning black. Okay, very funny, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Which one of you whispered blank stares? And then the hallway light buzzed and died. We jumped. Mark cursed. Sarah laughed nervously, but it was brittle, sharp around the edges. You need to fix your wiring, she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I forced myself to stand, moving toward the kitchen like I was proving something. The floor creaked under my weight, louder than it should have. The kind of sound you hear in old houses, the kind that feels like a groan of disapproval. The kitchen was empty, but it didn't feel empty. The shadows were wrong, stretching out like they were bending toward me eager. On the counter sat an old glass, cracked down the side. Harmless, right? But my eyes kept snagging on it like it wasn't supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be here, the voice again. Clearer this time, I swallowed hard. Very funny, I called back. My voice cracked. You're hilarious. 10 out of 10. Real prankster energy. But there was no reply. When I turned back toward the living room, the air felt colder. Sarah was hugging her knees to her chest, and Mark had gone quiet, his eyes fixed on the hallway. I wanted to leave. Right then, I almost did. I almost walked out, muttered some excuse, grabbed my coat, and left them behind. But something made me stay. Call it pride. Call it fear of looking stupid. Or maybe it was the house itself, holding me in place. So I sat back down. We tried to laugh it off. Mark made a dumb joke about me being paranoid. I forced a laugh. Even Sarah joined in, though hers sounded hollow. But then thump. Upstairs, we froze again. Another thump, slow, heavy, like someone dragging their feet across the floor, Mark muttered. It's an old house, pipes, settling whatever. But his voice was too fast, too rehearsed. Yeah, I said. Pipes that weigh 200 pounds. Bad. Broke the tension for a second. Sarah snorted. I even grinned. The relief was real until I glanced at the window and saw it. A face. Not outside, pale, hollow-eyed, pressed against the glass like it had been waiting for me to notice. My grin froze, slid right off my face. Holy, I started, but when I blinked, it was gone. Did you see that? I demanded, pointing. See what? Sarah asked. In the window, there was... I stopped. Because how do you explain a face that vanishes the second you acknowledge it? I could still feel the weight of its stare, though. Like a hand on the back of my neck. That was the moment that jokes died. The moment we all knew something was very, very wrong. The night was only just beginning. Midnight came, though I swear I never saw the clock hands move. 1 second it was 11:47, the next it blinked 12 o'clock, and then it blinked again. 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Every time I looked, it was still midnight. The world froze there, like the house refused to let time march forward. At first I thought it was a glitch, bad outlet maybe. But then Mark's phone buzzed, and I caught the screen. Midnight. When Sarah checked hers, same thing. Midnight. We laughed nervously, trading theories, until the hallway clock chimed. Once, twice, 3 times. We counted, expecting 12, but it stopped at 11, then rang again. The sound didn't fade, it layered. A 13th chime bled into a 14th until the whole house was ringing, the walls trembling with it, and then slammed. The kitchen door snapped shut, rattling the frame. Sarah yelped, nearly toppling off the couch. "That's it," she whispered. "This isn't funny anymore." I tried to say something comforting, but my words got stuck in my throat because I felt the air shift. The house wasn't just shelter, it was awake, it was watching. I got up, desperate for proof that this was all just paranoia. My feet dragged me toward the stairs. With every step I felt resistance. Not physical, not really, but the kind of pressure that makes your legs heavy, your heart loud. Carved into the wall, faint, almost hidden under layers of dust. Letters gouged in deep, shaky strokes. "Do not speak to them." "What the hell?" I whispered, another set of words, barely visible under the first. "Stay out of the red room." A shiver rolled through me. The walls weren't supposed to talk. No, they weren't supposed to warn, but they did. My pulse hammered in my ears. I wanted to call for Mark, for Sarah, for anyone. Instead, I pressed my palm against the wood. It was warm. And then a whisper not in the room, not even outside. It was inside me. "You found the rules." I jerked back, almost tumbling down the stairs. "Who said that?" My voice cracked. Mark leaned out of the living room. Said what? He didn't hear, but the voice cut me off, sliding in like a thought I didn't know. "Don't tell them or they'll know too." I clamped my mouth shut. That was the first moment paranoia sank its closet. It's not just about the house, about my friends. If I told them what I heard, if I broke the rules, would they turn on me? They even still be them? I forced myself back into the living room. My skin crawled. Sarah was pacing. Mark rubbed his temples like he had a migraine. And in the silence between us, the whispers grew louder. "Do you want to survive? Then listen." I squeezed my eyes shut. Not real, not real. But when I opened them, there was a scrap of paper on the floor by the coffee table. Yellowed, edges torn. I hadn't seen it before. Scrawled in frantic handwriting. "Don't look in mirrors after midnight. Don't answer if they call your name. If the stairs open, don't go down." The last line smeared, but I caught pieces of it. "Don't trust the ones you came with." "Where'd you get that?" Mark asked, peering over my shoulder. I don't know," I stammered. It was just Sarah snatched it from my hand, scanning the lines. "Okay, nope. This is staged. Somebody's messing with us." Her voice shook, though. She didn't believe her own words. The house groaned, the kind of sound wood makes when it bends under weight. Except this wasn't weight. It was breath. The walls inhaled. The floorboards exhaled. And then laughter, not ours. It came from upstairs, a bubbling, broken laugh, like someone choking on joy. Mark turned white. "That's not funny," he muttered. We froze, waited. Then the laugh came again, closer this time. And along with it, words slurred through the walls. "You shouldn't be here." Sarah backed up against the couch. "Tell me that's one of you. Please tell me," but neither of us answered. The lights flickered, plunging the room into dark, then back again. I wanted to run, to grab them both and bolt through the front door. But when I glanced at the entryway, saw the knob twisting, slowly, like someone on the other side was deciding whether to come in. And then it stopped. Silence fell again, the worst silence yet. I glanced down at my phone, desperate for distraction. Midnight. Still midnight. The battery bar flickered, full to empty, empty to full. like it couldn't decide if it was dying. It's when the voice whispered again, closer, hot against my ear. "Don't move. It sees you." I froze. My throat locked up. "What?" Sarah asked. I shook my head violently. Couldn't speak. Then Mark shouted, "What the hell is that?" We all looked. The floorboards in the center of the living room shifted, buckling upward. A nail popped loose, clattering across the wood. The sound of something beneath us. Something rising. When the floorboards opened. "I want to warn you now, this is where it gets bad. Really bad. If you stop here, you'll sleep easier tonight. But if you stop, you'll never know how it ends." The floorboards gaped wide, blackness yawning beneath the living room. Not just the darkness of an unlit basement, this was deeper, thicker, like tar that wanted to swallow the room whole. A smell rose out of it, coppery and sour, like something left to rot for years. And then the whispers grew louder. They weren't inside my head anymore. They were above me, below me, circling. Sarah clutched my arm. "We're not alone." She was right. The shadows moved wrong. They stretched long across the walls, but the angles didn't match our bodies. One shape bent at the knees, even though none of us were kneeling. Another shadow leaned in close to me, though nothing stood there, and then I saw the mirror. It leaned against the far wall, cracked, streaked with dust. I don't remember it being there before. My reflection was wrong. Mark and Sarah's faces looked back, pale and shaken, but me? My reflection's eyes bled red, streaks down my cheeks like tears of rust. Its mouth moved before mine did, whispering words I hadn't spoken yet. "You can't save them. You never will." I stumbled back, hitting the coffee table. My reflection smiled, lips splitting as if the skin itself hated the shape. That's when I heard it. My own voice, not inside, not from the reflection, from down the hallway. It was narrating. My words, right now, spoken in a steady tone. The floorboards opened. The shadows stretched. I saw myself bleed. I felt bile rise in my throat. Sarah's head snapped toward me. "Did you hear that?" I shook my head, terrified to admit the truth. But Mark muttered, That's you." My knees wobbled. "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." And then we heard it clearer this time, from the other room. I heard myself scream before I even opened my mouth. I froze. That was impossible. I hadn't screamed. Not yet. The house was ahead of me. It knew what I would do before I did it. Sarah screamed suddenly, snapping me out of the trance. She pointed toward the window. Someone was standing outside. No something. The figure pressed its hands against the glass, but no shadow stretched behind it. Its eyes glowed faint like dying embers. And when its mouth opened, I swore I heard my own name whispered back. "Don't," I hissed. "Don't say anything." Mark ignored me. "Me too." "Who are you?" he shouted. The glass fogged as the figure exhaled. Etch. Words etched into the condensation. "We already know you." Sarah backed into the corner, shaking her head violently. This isn't real. This isn't real." But the figure outside didn't move. The one thing I couldn't shake the handwriting in the fog was mine. The walls groaned again, that same terrible sound of the house breathing. Plaster pulsed in and out like lungs. The floor shivered beneath my feet, as if a heartbeat thudded deep inside the foundation. And then the voice spoke again, only this time it wasn't mine, it was yours. Yes, you, listening now. The voice said your thoughts. The things you keep buried, secrets you've never told, Sarah whimpered. How does it know? Mark cut her off, shouting, Stop listening to it. Don't answer. But it was too late. The whispers had slipped inside us, wearing our own voices, telling us every mistake we'd ever made. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, an old candlestick from the mantel, and smashed the mirror. The glass split into shards that scattered across the floor, but the reflection didn't break. It stayed whole, grinning up at me from fractured silver. And now blood wasn't just on its face. It dripped down the glass itself, thick and red, pooling on the wood. That was when Mark shouted again. His eyes were wide, staring at the ceiling. Do you hear that? We all stopped. And yes, we heard it. A scream, piercing human. But it wasn't Sarah's. It wasn't Mark's. It was mine, echoing from the attic. The scream went on, rattling in my bones, even though my mouth hadn't opened. I hadn't gone upstairs. Not yet. The house had already decided I would. And it was already waiting for me there. I ran. I don't even remember choosing to. My legs just carried me, slamming down the hallway, shoulder-checking walls, leaving streaks of blood I didn't notice until later. My chest felt like it was collapsing from the inside. But I didn't dare slow down. I thought I'd be clever. I thought if I could just get out, this would all be over. But that's the lie the house or whatever it is wants you to believe. I kicked the front door until my heel felt like it split. Wood splintered under my fists, cracks spiderwebbing like bone fractures. One more slam and I should have been outside, except I wasn't. When the door fell, it didn't lead to the street, or the yard, or even the world I remembered. It opened into the same hallway I had just come from, same torn wallpaper, same crooked picture frame, same stains that were never there before tonight. That was the moment my stomach turned inside out. Not just fear, not just panic, it was recognition. Like something in me already knew this was coming. I tried the windows next. Smashed one with a chair until glass rained over my hands. I climbed through slicing skin, feeling warm blood coat my palms, and landed with a grunt on asphalt. Actually laughed, thinking I'd beaten it. Then I looked up. The house was there, looming, bigger than before. Its windows weren't windows anymore. They were open eyes, black and wet, staring down at me. I stumbled backward and realized I wasn't in the street. The lampposts were there. The cracked pavement, the fences I grew up walking past. But the people weren't right. A woman stood frozen on her porch across the street. A man stood on the corner with a grocery bag spilling oranges at his feet. They didn't move. They didn't blink. They just stared at me with the same blank, drowning expression as the house. I shouted. I waved. I begged them to help. One of them just moved. Slowly, her head cracked sideways, bones making a sound like wet sticks breaking. And then, in a voice that wasn't hers, that wasn't even human, she whispered, "We see you." I bolted. It didn't matter where. I just ran. Street after street, breath tearing my lungs apart, until I collapsed against a stop sign. Except the sign didn't say stop. Not anymore. Its red face was covered in smeared black paint, spelling out words I shouldn't have read but couldn't look away from. "You're already inside." I don't know how long I screamed. Maybe a second. Maybe an hour. The world shook around me like the pavement was just wallpaper peeling back to reveal more of the same house behind it. I tried my phone, tried calling anyone, friends, family, emergency services. But every time, the same voice answered before the first ring. "Don't hang up," it said. "It'll only make it worse." I threw the phone against the curb and it didn't shatter. Didn't even crack. It just laughed. Tinny hollow, my own laugh on repeat. So I ran back. Where else could I go? The house was waiting. I went inside again. Not again. I never left. The air inside was heavier, like breathing syrup. Every step echoed too many times, bouncing back at me as if I wasn't alone. I smashed mirrors, thinking maybe reflections were the doorway, that if I broke them all, I'd break its hold. But every shard reflected me wrong. No. My face stretched thin, skin peeled, eyes missing. In one shard, my reflection turned its head when I didn't. In another, it leaned closer, whispering something only my bones seemed to understand. I staggered back, but the mirrors didn't stop. They were everywhere now, hanging from ceilings, propped in corners, stacked like rotting furniture, each one showing me dying a little differently. I thought of fire. Maybe fire could kill it. I found matches in a kitchen drawer that hadn't been there before. My hand shook so badly I could barely strike one. Flame caught, small and pitiful. But it was something. I touched it to the curtains, watched them curl black. The smoke stung my throat, but for one dizzy second, I believed this might end it. That's when the fire went out, not burned out. Snuffed like unseen fingers pinched it dead. The smoke stayed, choking me, but the fire, the only weapon I had, was gone. And then the whispers started again. Crawling down the walls, dripping from the ceiling, seeping up through the floorboards. They didn't come from any one place. They came from everywhere. Run if you want, there is no out. Every door leads back here. Every breath feeds us. I clawed at the wallpaper until my fingernails peeled back. Behind the paper wasn't drywall or wood. It was skin. Warm, pulsing, bleeding when I tore it. I staggered to the front door again, flung it open, praying this time would be different. It wasn't. The same hallway, the same picture frame, same stains. It was looping, meeting me in circles. I collapsed on the floor, sobbing. My voice echoed back, not delayed, not warped, just wrong. Like it wasn't mine anymore. And then I saw them. The shadows. Not on the wall, but peeling off it, like tar sliding into the shape of something almost human. Their mouths opened, but instead of sound, my thoughts poured out things I never said out loud, things I buried. My guilt, my shame, my lies. They weren't chasing me. They didn't have to. They were me. I crawled to the corner, curled up, begging it all to stop. And for a moment, just a heartbeat it did. Silence, thick and suffocating. That's when I realized silence was worse, because in silence, you can hear it breathing. Slow, steady, patient, like it has all the time in the world. Thought it escaped. I swear I opened my eyes and saw the sky, the trees, the street lamps. I thought maybe passing out had broken the cycle. But then I blinked, and I was standing in the house again. The front door shut behind me with a final, deliberate click, which brings me back to right now. Don't scroll. Don't turn away. It already knows you're here. I thought I could contain this by speaking it out loud, by dumping the rot of it into your ears instead of letting it ferment inside me. But the truth is, it doesn't stop. Not with me. Not with you. Do you hear that? No, not in the room around you, behind the words. It's that faint scraping, that hiss under my breath. That's not me. That's it. It's two. I can feel it watching through the cracks in your screen right now. The static between us is just enough for it to lean closer, to smell you. That's how it works. It doesn't need doors or walls or nights like mine. It needs your attention. It needs the space your curiosity makes. That's why I'm telling you not to stop. The moment you think about leaving clicking off, scrolling past it notices, and once it notices, it follows. So, you're trapped with me now. Every word I speak burrows deeper. You'll remember them tonight when you're lying in the dark, trying to convince yourself it's only a story. Or hear me again, whispering from your closet, or your bathroom mirror, or the other side of your bed. When you hear your own voice answer back, that's when you'll know it's begun. I'm sorry, I never wanted this for you. If I had shut my mouth, maybe it would have stayed contained. But silence doesn't protect anyone. Silence only makes it hungrier. Listen carefully. If you start to see the walls ripple, shadows move when you don't. If your reflection lingers too long, don't scream. Don't fight. That only feeds it faster. Do nothing. Pretend you don't notice. Pray it gets bored. And if you can't, then write it down. Let's pass it on. Infect someone else before it takes you. That's the only reason I'm still here. It's the only reason you're hearing me now. It doesn't die. It doesn't fade. It spreads. Through me. Through you. Through everyone who dares to listen long enough. Comment what you saw. You survived long enough to type. Maybe someone will read your warning before they hear mine. Maybe not. I don't have much time. The walls are not walls anymore, not skin, not God. It's coming through again. The floor is breaking open like a mouth. If you're still here, it's already too late.